All right, let's talk about episode 2. This one was called The Rogue Prince, but it could just as likely have been called Bad Choice Road because that's what Viserys was traveling down. So many terrible decisions. Sometimes it was painful to watch. At the council meeting, just after Corlys had just about openly declared that the king was acting weakly, he decided to make a stand. After he had learned that Daemon had taken the dragon egg that had been intended for his son, the one who had died one day after birth. At this point, he decided he was going to confront Daemon at Dragonstone. But then Otto Hightower, the puppet master, steps in, manipulates Viserys, tells him, hey, it's not safe for you. Just stay here in the Red Keep. I'll go. And Viserys, of course, as he always does with Otto, agrees. Then at Dragonstone, Daemon asks Otto where his brother is. This is a mess that Viserys has created. He's pitting two men that loathe one another into this volatile confrontation. If he had been there, he could smooth it over. But instead, he stays in the Red Keep, playing with his model of Valyria and his toy dragon. And it's Rhaenyra, his 15-year-old daughter, who arrives, retrieves the egg, avoids any bloodshed, and returns to King's Landing. And then Viserys admits to Rhaenyra after she returns, he concedes that she probably averted violence. It's in a tacit way, he's admitting that he failed. His 15-year-old daughter is filling the power vacuum already. And if you noticed, out there at Dragonstone, Otto saw it. That look on his face was basically saying, I can't manipulate the daughter the same way I do the father. This is a different situation, and she's extremely formidable. Then Viserys just botched the whole second marriage decision. Corlys came to him, offered his daughter to join their two houses, and Viserys just couldn't have handled that any worse than he did. Before we get into the mistakes that Viserys made, just want to take a few moments to go over that creepy and unsettling scene as the old king is walking along, getting to know his potential second wife, a 12-year-old girl who's being forced into the situation. And some of the lines she was fed to say to him that she was going to give him pure-blooded Valyrian children, and it was awful. And then Viserys at one point asked her, what did Rhaenys, her mother, say? And the girl said that she could wait until she was 14 to bed him, as if that's some sort of consolation in this whole sick scene. So there were two big mistakes here for Viserys. He knew he wasn't going to marry Lena, but instead of taking Corlys aside one-on-one and telling him, he surprises him with it at the council. Now you might say, Corlys was still going to be upset. He'd still feel the rebuke, but on top of that, Viserys isn't showing him any respect. And if he took him aside, he could simply have said to him, look, I need a wife that's of childbearing age. I can't wait 2 years. Corlys still wouldn't have been happy about the decision, but at least there's some rationale and some sense behind it that he can absorb and accept at some level. But then he hits him with this at the council without any explanation, and at the same time, Corlys feels that the king isn't listening to him about the stepstones and his real concerns there. So he's lost, really alienated an important ally. From here, Corlys will then turn to Daemon. The second big mistake was that Viserys didn't even tell his daughter. Rhaenyra gets blindsided at the same council as Corlys. So he has his chief ally walk out on him. He has his daughter leave. And then he's got this whole mess still with his brother that he hasn't resolved or attempted to do anything about. He's burning so many bridges, and he just sits there in the Red Keep playing with that model of old Valyria. He's just so disconnected from what's going on and just a puppet for Otto. It's just brought right home here that he's marrying his daughter, who he's pushed on him. And Viserys just hasn't had any intuition to see what's going on around him. Okay, now on to Rhaenyra for a little bit. There was a real pendulum shift for her in this episode. Early on, she was having that conversation with Rhaenys, and at the time, she was just so confident that things would be different for her than it was for the queen that never was. And then at the end, she was taken by complete surprise. She knew her father was going to remarry, but she had no idea about Allison. Her whole world was turned upside down when she found out that her good friend was going to marry her father. I thought this was a great setup episode. We had new divisions form, others expanded a bit. Viserys continued to make poor decisions. These things are compounding themselves and further imperiling his family. This episode, I would give an 8 out of 10. Same score as the last episode. It was a different one, but just as good. I'm really looking forward to where the story goes over these next 8. And that's about it for this one. I want to thank everyone for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.